So I have to get started saying that I'm really happy to be here, and it's sort of strange and roundabout how I came to be here. About a year ago, I heard about Creative Live for the first time because my friend Lindsay Adler, who has been on Creative Live and is amazing, told me about it. And I kind of said, I don't want to do something like that, it's not for me. You know, I like to be in person when I teach my workshops, and then I met somebody who has previously been in the audience on Creative Live. Her name is TY, and she was visiting from Nigeria, I believe. And she said to me, you know, think about all the people who can't afford to come to your workshop or who can't travel to get to your workshops. Think about those people. And it just kind of knocked me on the floor, and I said, oh my gosh, I've been, you know, thinking so much about what I want to do. I didn't even consider what other people might want me to do. And so that's when I said, you know what, I am now fully on board with Creative Live. I fell in love with it. I've been watching the videos. I was completely glued to Kelly last week doing the newborns. So now I'm an avid fan, and that makes me even more excited to be here. So I just want to talk you a little bit through what we're going to be doing the next few days, what this class is going to be like. It's going to be a little bit different, I think, from what Creative Live is used to having on the show, maybe. We have some really strange props and things like that, but it's going to be awesome. So let's take you through the overview of what we're going to be doing on Creative Live. First thing, we're going to talk about inspiration. That is the reason why you create something in the first place. So if I'm going to pick up my camera, it's only because I'm inspired. I'm not going to pick up my camera unless I feel that inspiration. I'm going to be doing a lot of photo shoot demonstrations. So we're going to be shooting in a studio, which is something that it's really funny because I don't often shoot in a studio. In fact, I never shoot in a studio, but I always shoot in my bedroom. And this is really no different. So I'm going to be showing how I shoot in my bedroom, little things that I do to change the space up and not make it so boring. So we're going to have some models, we're going to have a bride and a groom, we're going to do a senior portrait, because I wanted to relate this in general to the portrait world. So, you know, it might not be my style to go out and grab, you know, a senior in high school and take their picture, you know, for their, you know, senior portraits. But it would be my style to grab any person in the world, no matter what they look like, no matter what their age is, and create a character out of them. So I'm going to be creating characters, even with the bride and groom. We have storytelling. So I will be talking a lot about how to tell a story, because that to me is the heart of an image, is, you know, being able to create an environment that people can get lost in when they view the image. Editing, we're going to be doing editing tomorrow, so that's going to be very fun and exciting. And then we're going to be doing business. So I have a long business presentation to give you guys, hopefully jam-packed with things that you're going to find fun and exciting in a way that business can be. And we're going to be talking to a gallery live as well. Okay, so I'm going to just jump right in here. If you guys are all ready, we're all good to go?
I think we're ready.
Awesome.
Excited.
Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to do, so as not to freak everybody out as we go, is show you a little bit of my portfolio, because it is a little bit different. It can be a little bit strange. I like to photograph dead people, but not actual dead people, just like me playing dead. And so you'll see that. But yeah, I wanted to take you through how I got started in photography and why I got started. So the story that I like to tell in terms of my first experience with photography was in high school. And in high school, I took a black and white film photography class, and I hated it. I thought it was the worst medium to work in. And my issue was that we had to shoot inanimate objects, and I hated that. All I wanted to do was shoot people. That was my passion at the time, or so I thought. So I started taking pictures of people. So I would take a picture of a person, print it, and then take a picture of the inanimate object, you know? I got in trouble for that. I would take pictures of people's hands and arms, got in trouble for that. And it just became this thing where I was clearly not going to do well in the class. I got a B, but that was the lowest grade they were allowed to give in that class. So I failed for all intents and purposes. So I didn't enjoy it. I left feeling like, gosh, you know, photography is not for me. I can't tell the stories that I want to tell. So I went into filmmaking. And I took a class in high school, loved it, just really enjoyed working with video. So I went into college and studied filmmaking. and I also studied English. So by doing that, I was really well prepared to tell stories. That was what my aim was. But I graduated from college and didn't really have a very good video to show off. It didn't really tell much of a story. It was very experimental. So from that point on, I said, you know what? I'm graduated now. I don't have anybody telling me what I can or can't do in school. So I'm picking up my camera again, and I'm going to start photography my way. So that was in December 2008 that I first picked up my camera, for real this time. And at that point, I just started taking the pictures that I wanted to take with no restrictions. And so that's kind of like what you see up here. This is one of my very, very early pictures within about the first month of starting photography. And I'm covered in chocolate sauce, which sounds like, you know, a really fun thing to do, and it was until I got chocolate all over my bed and my floor and the bathtub and all of that. But this was the kind of stuff that I was doing. I was working with a blank wall. I didn't have anything at my disposal. I didn't have models. I didn't have lights. All I had was apparently a bottle of chocolate sauce and myself. So I took what I had, I used it, I did what I could with it, and I started playing with light. I started playing with poses. I started playing with props. And I said, you know what, I'm not making enough money. I don't have any resources to build an elaborate image, so I'm going to work with what I have. So this was 2009 for me, and I just want to take you through my portfolio a little bit here. So these are some of the images I was doing. I was trying to play with gravity. I was trying to get really excited about my blank space, my one room. And another funny story about where I was living was that I actually didn't have a big enough apartment to where I could pull my camera back and see my whole body in the picture. So that's how tiny my apartment was. It was a bed and a desk and nothing else. And so I started getting a little bit crafty with how I constructed my images. I started taking a picture of my upper body and then tilting my camera down and taking a picture of my lower body, and then I can composite the two together, and then it looked like I had a bigger apartment than I did. So that's how I started image compositing and image manipulation and things like that. I started venturing out of my apartment. I started going into places that I felt secure in, but were still interesting to me. This was the parking garage of the movie production company that I worked for. I was a receptionist there. And I waited until everybody had left, laid down on the floor, and then a car came in and I almost got run over. But that's kind of the fun for me of photography, is not knowing what's going to happen, going out on your own, being able to do these shoots, you know, with little to no budget, but you have the most amazing experiences because of it. Here again, laying dead. I told you I like dead people. So I'm laying here in an abandoned water tower on a mountain. It was really incredible. There was a rattlesnake in there, so I didn't know until I left. And this is the kind of thing that I was doing that first year, playing dead, trying out different spaces, really just trying to find my voice as a photographer. There's a trash can, very partial to trash cans. I don't know what it is, but I just love them. So I played a lot with trash cans. There it is again, brought that same trash can inside. So you can see that my locations aren't elaborate. It's whatever I had around me, whatever props I could find. And then there's the oven. So I decided, well, you know what? I'm not a model, certainly not. I'm very short. I'm very compact. So why not get into places that regular models can't get into, right? So I found my oven, opened the door, stuck myself inside. The whole photo shoot was actually out of focus, so I had to go do it again, which was kind of a mess. And I did some other things too, like I stuck myself in the freezer. That wasn't easy to do either. I had to get my husband to sort of lift up and then push me in there. So I started doing things like that. And then I started to play with image manipulation a little bit more. So this is the kind of space that I was working in. And when I shot this picture, this is the before picture. And what this is just the only space in my apartment that I could have possibly shot in. So you can see my bed in the corner that I couldn't get out of the shot. My desk is at the other end, and that is literally the only space I had. So I would sit against my wall. I would do things with that same blank wall as many times as I could in as many different ways as I could. So there we have a shot of my hair so then I could put that final image together. And I'm going to be showing you tons of before and after pictures as well. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, but I wanted to show you what I was working with. You can also see that I'm sitting on a sheet. And the reason is that I knew that I wanted to make it look like a ceiling, like a wall intersection. Instead of using a floor with wood on it, I used a sheet. So these were the types of images that I was just loving doing, but at a certain point, I really wanted to branch out from there and try something different. So 2010 came around, and that's when I started doing a little more of the trick imagery, levitation, things like that. And I was experimenting with new places. So I went to this abandoned warehouse. This was shot for a ballet company. And I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna try something totally different, totally new. And this spawned out of them wanting underwater images, but their competition already had underwater images. So I said, okay, then I'll make it look like it's underwater, but it won't be. So I started creating pictures like this. Now, this picture is very interesting because a lot of times people ask me, you know, do your models just jump and then fall on the ground? And the answer is only like 5% of the time does that happen. I try not to let that happen too often. I've learned my lesson, certainly, from doing it myself. So this is one of those pictures, though, where I had my remote on a 2-second timer. I went running and then jumped, hit the wall, and clicked, hopefully at the right time. So this is what I don't recommend doing when doing images like this, but it's still really fun, really awesome, a good story. And I had about 25 tourists doing video, taking pictures of this event because they thought that I was like an attraction for the location that I was at. You know, I was in a full dress twirling around, and I don't think I disappointed them, though. So this was my apartment again after moving, slightly bigger space so I could spread out. You know, do something with my whole body in the picture, a little easier. Again, playing with levitation, starting to get into more of my style with the natural light, moving into outdoor spaces. This is the kind of thing that I'm most comfortable with now. So it's really interesting how, you know, I could start in my little apartment. I was so terrified to go outside. I've refused to use natural light, aside from window light. And then now that's all I do. So it's really interesting how you can grow as an artist if you keep pushing yourself and keep doing things that scare you. I started using different camera angles, different techniques that I hadn't thought of before. So this is the before image there. And these are all pictures that I shot by myself. You know, I never had an assistant. I never had anybody, you know, holding my camera bag or taking the picture for me. It's all just me going out by myself, being alone, and, you know, doing what I could with it. So for this image in particular, I had my camera with an 18mm kit lens on it, had it at 18 millimeters, just shot straight down, and then I was sitting in water, so then my dress would fluff up. And it's things like that where, you know, had I tried it on land, the dress wouldn't have looked very interesting, but because I sat in the water, it did. So I started learning little things like that. What can I do? What resources do I have available that I can use to make my photography a little more interesting? So here we have 2011, and really I'm moving into the dreamy aspect that I love so much, the fairy tales and things like that. So in 2011, I played with clouds a lot. I started gathering stock images of clouds. And by stock images, I don't mean pictures that I found on the internet. I went out and I take pictures of clouds every day that I can. My friends always text me and they say, there are clouds today. And then I run outside and I gather them up. And I have about 500 of them now saved up for different pictures that I can use them for. I started shooting nudes, and so this is the kind of thing that I was really interested in at the time, having body contortions and figuring out how light would reflect off of skin, things like that. And then I loved playing with surrealism, and I still do. It's something that I find just infinitely fascinating, the idea that you can have such a juxtaposition in an image and play that against each other. That's really what creates a surreal image, and that really lends itself to the fine art category. This image was done, again, trying a new technique, trying to push myself and do something a little bit different. So for this image in particular, I took a picture of a key, photographed it about 50 times, put those 50 pictures into Photoshop, and then duplicated those keys until I had 1,000 of them. I cut them out, and then I sort of constructed the dress out of all of these cutout keys. So this is the kind of thing that's really, really fun to do and really challenging at the same time. You know, my computer crashed about 100 times. I have since upgraded, thank goodness, to a new computer. But this is the kind of thing that inspires me. You know, I didn't have to go out and buy 1,000 keys and construct a dress. I could do it in Photoshop. I loved playing with clouds. Again, these are constructed clouds, so not real, but it's just done with some pillow batting, in this case, fake snow, because I live in LA, so you can always find fake snow there. And it's just the fluff that you would find inside of a pillow. Sort of pull it apart, make it look fluffy, hold it up in the air, and there you go, you have a cloud. So things like this excite me beyond belief. I started moving into some underwater work. Underwater is a huge passion of mine. I love that space because it's something completely different. It's a space where you can't naturally exist. So that's exciting to me. And then I started playing with fabrics. And this image for me was a real turning point in my career because I am playing with the idea that you don't have to have money to do a photo shoot. So I went out and bought a $2 piece of fabric, and I used that singular piece of fabric to create a dress, just like the key image. So here's another picture of that. I'm literally just taking that fabric, throwing it out in front of me, and then trying to put it together in Photoshop. Now the reason why this works is because I knew beforehand what I was going to be doing. So if I had gone in to take this picture and I didn't know exactly what I wanted the picture to look like, I wouldn't have known what to take pictures of. And that's where image compositing and even a lot of fine art photography, it comes in handy if you know what you're going to shoot. So if you're shooting with intent, you know why you're taking that picture, then your pictures are going to look a lot more purposeful, and that's going to translate to the viewer. So here we have 2012. I shot this image out of an airplane window. Obviously not the whole thing. I didn't throw myself out of the airplane or anything like that. But I used image compositing, and in this case, I'm trying to figure out what backgrounds will match, how I can get the perspective to be the same, things like that. And that's what we're going to go over when we get into the image compositing portion of this workshop. So I'm trying to get, in 2012, into more elaborate scenes. I'm trying to work with spaces that I've never worked with before, places that aren't easily accessible, like clouds in the sky, being underground, things like that. And then this is another one of those images where I photographed the leaves individually and then compiled them together to create the dress. So in this case, I shot the background out of a car window, just driving through my hometown of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, shooting out the car window, and I got this amazing, beautiful scene of a farm. And then I thought, what can I put into that space? So this is something very rare for me. It's not very often that I will composite a person into an image later. I try to shoot everything on location. That way the lighting is the same, the camera angle is the same. You're going to be very consistent. Again, with that dress technique, taking a picture of a paper airplane, layering it many, many times, putting it all over the dress, and then creating this elaborate scene. So there are a couple of things that are going into this elaborate image, and that is the construction of the dress, paying attention to having a really interesting background instead of having it be so neutral. So I have these clouds with a burst of light and the colors, putting an airplane in the background, and that really solidifies the concept for me, is having that little airplane in the background. So because I have that in there, you have the connection between an actual airplane in flight and then the girl covered in the paper airplanes wanting to fly. This was another very elaborate shot that I did where I had to shoot this in several different parts. So I shot the ship in one location because I couldn't transport it. I shot the rope on the scene with the model in the ocean. I shot underwater at a different location. I shot the clouds at a different spot. But it's all about knowing what kind of lighting and what kind of camera angle you need to capture. So here we have this year, and this is really the direction that I'm headed in now. I worked with a designer on this dress. I had it all sketched up as best I could. I'll show you my sketchbook later. It's really horrendous. But I did the best I could. We met. She made this amazing dress for me, and I was able to construct this image by using a smoke bomb, but I'm not supposed to say bomb, I think, smoke emitter. And we're going to be using one of those later. So using that, using birds, using another sky that I had, and then going out to the desert and shooting on location. And here again, it's the same sort of thing where I have a dress made for this particular image, made out of sticks. And I had to know exactly what the end result was going to look like in order to get this picture, knowing exactly what needed to be photographed. Here we have, again, another elaborate scene, having to know what it's going to look like. So in this case, I shot that room in London during a workshop that I was teaching there. I shot the rest of it on location in the snow. That's really important to me, is being with the scene. That way I, as a character, can get into character. Whoever's modeling can get into character, even though it's rather torturous at times, but it's kind of a fun story anyways. So that's why we're going to ever so slightly torture our models over the next 3 days. All right, so that is an overview of my portfolio, and I just wanted to share that with you just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from, so that when I say really ridiculous, weird things, you're gonna understand why.